I'm good, man. I can't really complain. It's a beautiful day. I'm happy to be here, happy to be alive,
Yep.
and I'm happy that we got a great guest here in
Yes,
studio today.
we do have a very special guest, the 10th president of Rhode Island College, Dr. Frank Sánchez. How are you today, Doctor?
We're doing great, Nick. First, I just want to thank these two guys for inviting me to join you on your radio station and talk a little bit about what's going on at RIC. One of the things I've heard as I've talked to now hundreds of students, frankly, is the need to have more campus life, student activities, better housing. We have to do something about parking. I've heard a little bit about advising.
Yep, there's
And
a
so
little bit about everything.
just a little bit of this, but I'm excited you guys invited me to join you, and I'm happy we have some listeners out there. Hopefully we'll get some phone calls in a little bit.
The two phone lines are 456-9946 and 456-8787. So if you guys have a question for Dr. Sánchez, if you guys have concerns with the RIC campus, your education, whatever it may be, if you're a parent or a student, this is a great forum to do it in.
Yeah.
So let's get started off. How's your time been at RIC so far? When did you were selected over the summer, right?
Yeah, so I've been here about 2.5 months.
Yep.
And my time's been great. I've been so impressed with our students and our faculty and staff about the work that's happening at this institution. One thing in particular I'm impressed with is how, we have some work to do, but I'll tell you, for many, in fact, decades, I've talked to many alumni too, there's a real kind of student-centered approach to Rhode Island College.
Absolutely.
There's this ethic of care where faculty and staff care a lot about the success of our students. And I'll tell you, that's where you want to be. If you want to be a president or you want to be a faculty or administrator, if there's a real culture that cares about students, that's a great starting point. You can always build off that.
Yeah.
And it's something it's hard to train or to teach. Either you have it or you don't.
Right.
But Rhode Island College has it. Again, there's things we can do better, but when there's this fundamental value that we care about students, and this is coming from someone, I've spent the last 25 years in higher education, specifically in student services. How to create programs and policies and services to help students succeed. And then you come into a Rhode Island college. This is one of the best kept secrets, I think, and I can talk a little bit later why I think that.
Yeah, I would agree, because being in the mass media program, it's a small unit per se, but people really do care. I've noticed that. I haven't found a professor that hasn't cared about my specific education as much as the next kid, but they care equally about everybody's. And they almost take you in as, it feels like this aunt, uncle, niece, nephew sort of thing. And that's the great part about RIC. It doesn't matter that there's 10,000 kids here. I think professors understand here how hard it is for a lot of kids coming from, this is a low economic school, and kids are really working hard to get in here, to pay for it. They're working, some of them are working 2 jobs.
For themselves,
yes, some of them are working 2 jobs and going to school. And I think there becomes this mentoring mentality from a lot of professors and departments here. And that's great.
Well, that's, I hadn't heard anyone quite put it that way. I love that kind of this aunt, uncle, someone looking over you.
Yeah.
I was talking to an alumni not too long ago. He graduated in the 70s. His name, Tom Iannotti. Now, this guy, he would say he came from a blue-collar, working-class family, first in his family to go to college. But he took a class from one of our faculty members. Some of you may have seen Sappensley Hall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Named after John Sappensley. Yep. So he had a class from him, and he said, this professor saw that I had some skills in economics. He didn't know the first thing about economics. Took a class, literally that professor kind of took him under his wing and then exposed him to the world of economics. Tom now, he retired at age 52 from a Fortune 10 company.
Wow.
Literally traveled around the world.
That's amazing.
And now wants to get re-engaged with Rhode Island College because this institution had a profound impact. And it's faculty like Dr. Sappensley and the hundreds of faculty that are here at Rhode Island College that value students, value their success, and want to help students realize their real potential in this world. And I got to tell you, that's one of the coolest things, being president now for 2.5 months, to learn that kind of culture's there.
Yeah, man. Also, just to go back on the first point, thank you for coming into the show. As president of Rhode Island College, this is appreciated. You didn't have to do this. but you did because you wanted to come on. You wanted to be able to have this forum to communicate with students, to get your word out there, and that's appreciated, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Raz, one of the things that I heard loud and clear when I was interviewing, and certainly since I've been here, is that there needs to be more communication. And so I've heard that, and we're taking steps to provide better communication to our students, to our faculty, to our staff, to our nearly 60,000 living alumni. I heard over and over there wasn't enough communication. So I just hired an associate director of communications that will report in the president's office, and we're in the process of hiring a director of communications so that we can do that better. And I think it's forums like this, whether it's radio, some of you follow me on social media, my Twitter handle, or it's just simple email communications. We have to do a better job doing that, because I'll tell you, there's some amazing resources and services on this campus that as I talk to students, they don't know about them.
That's real.
And that's where the radio station can really help us and other folks, student leaders, to get the word out.
Yeah. So, speaking of resources and stuff like that, just actually with my senior practicum class, we did a PSA for Learning for Life.
Okay.
And I've been here now, this is my 4th year, this is my senior year, this is final hurrah. This is the first time I'm hearing about Learning for Life. And it's an amazing resource. It's an amazing program. So those programs like that, what is the plan in the future? Are you looking to bring in more programs? Are you looking to mainly enhance what we have, get out the word? Because it just seems, coming from personal experience, coming from the people in my group, and then we even went and talked to a freshman seminar class about Learning for Life.
Yep.
And not a single kid raised their hand when we asked if any of them knew what Learning for Life was. And I think that happens a lot at the school, where kids don't necessarily know about the awesome resources they already have. So what's the plan?
Sure. So it's a great question. I think it's actually a combination of identifying those programs that are very strong in what they do. And Learning for Life's a great example. They have great retention and success rates for students. It's kind of this wraparound set of advising, support services, just a little bit more additional attention for students as they transition to the university. Frankly, it's the way across the country, advising and student success program, that's where they're going. It's this model. So this would be an example where what we would like to do is to invest in that and scale that up. I think last year they served about 600 students.
Wow.
Well, we have a lot more than that.
Right.
And so what we want to do is see how we can make some investments to scale that up and create more opportunity for students to have that type of experience. I think there's other things we can look at more closely and say, is there evidence that shows impact on the success of students, graduation rates, students continuing their education? And if there isn't evidence, then we got to say, well, is there a better way to use those resources?
Yeah.
And so those are some of the tougher conversations we in administration, and not just, but also students, we have to have those conversations so that we can best utilize our resources to optimize the impact on student success. But Learning for Life is a great program and something we want to invest more in.
Yeah. There kids, I remember reading an interview you did where you mentioned in college that the reason you became interested in the school administration was because you saw kids not coming back to school.
Yeah.
And those programs, I feel like programs like Learning for Life and other ones clearly I haven't heard of so far, those are the type of programs that keep kids coming back to school.
Exactly right.
What else do you do to keep kids coming back to RIC? Because you hear a lot of times kids say, I'm only here for 2 years. I'm here for a semester. I'm here for a year.
If they come, they transfer. They
Right.
want to go to like URI. They want to go to another school.
Right.
How can we keep these kids here at RIC?
Yeah, that's another very good question. One of the things that we're going to work hard to do going forward, I don't think enough students, and frankly, people in Rhode Island in general, know the quality that's at RIC.
Yeah.
I've shared some
That's for
statistics.
sure.
I've shared some
That's real.
statistics and some data with business executives, with elected officials, and I've gotten the response I had no idea. And let me just share a couple of them that I found impressive as I was researching. So today, and I know some of our listeners, maybe there's some nursing degree folks, our RN to BSN program at Rhode Island College is number 10 in the nation.
Wow.
It is number one, hands down, in New England.
Yep.
It's like off the charts good. Right now, Rhode Island College often isn't known for its school of management. We have a very strong school of management. In fact, today, our accounting program, top 10% in the nation.
Yeah, I was just reading that article actually this week.
10% in the nation.
The bang that you get for your buck at Rhode Island College is one of the most appealing aspects of the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have quality, and I'm glad you said that. You have affordability. The value at Rhode Island College is better than anything. You said best bang for the buck. Actually, there's a national, the Washington Monthly did a national survey of all college universities, and actually they called it best bang for the buck.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. And what they looked at is they wanted to know which colleges and universities keep debt down, which ones help students from modest means move up the economic ladder by bringing in additional resources, and which institutions help with community service, having students give back to their state and their nation. Now I want the listeners to hear this. Out of 402 colleges and universities in the entire Northeast, Rhode Island College, number 6.
Wow.
It's
Top
amazing.
1.5% of doing that work. And again, a lot of folks, and that speaks specifically to the value and the quality and the affordability of higher education. The last thing we want are students walking away with a ton of debt.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense
Yeah.
when you can get a quality education right here and not have to go through all that.
I think public education, especially like Rick, has been totally undermined, with the coming of big private universities. And that's why I think places like Rick are kind of forgotten about in the whole scheme of things.
Yeah.
It's an incredible, I did not come here thinking to myself, man, it's going to be awesome that I'm walking out with no debt. But you go year after year and you see the expenses that college piles up and things like that. And you go, this has been the most amazing thing for me ever. On top of the education, I've had a great education here, which I think has been second to none. I don't think I could have gone somewhere else and gotten out of college what I got out of here.
Right.
And I think that's a personal thing. But for kids, I think a lot of students in high school, they might look at the term bang for buck and they might say to themselves, all right, they might think of it almost as like a CCRI.
Yeah, they're not really understanding. They want
Right.
to go to a school with, Division I sports or, a large on-campus,
Right.
life.
They want to go to a place that doesn't have that term. For some reason, I think bang for buck comes with however you would, not necessarily affordable, because I think affordable is appealing to anybody at this point, but bang for a buck, kids almost seem deterred by that. And how do we let high school students know it's not a stigma, it's just a fact. This is such a good education. It's not just a place you're going to go and just, here's a degree because you got it for cheap. No, this is a place that is really offering you the top-notch education that you can get.
Well, that's where I think the administration, we have to do a better job. And I don't know if the language, in fact, I'm pretty sure it's probably not getting out on every poster board or radio station, we're the best bang for the buck. I will say, though, I think we're the number one value when it comes to higher education, I would argue, in the region.
I would agree.
And that's the message we have to get out. We have to get out the quality of the programs that are here. Yeah. Because people, the general public, just don't know the quality that's out here. And then we got to show the value. And that's the messaging that Rhode Island College has to do better. And then we have to do some new initiatives to tell the public and tell our students we're serious about student success. A lot of folks don't realize we had record. In fact, some of the folks that had a difficult time parking this morning, part of the reason why is because we had 7-year record enrollments for freshmen this year.
Wow.
The highest freshman class in the last 7 years. And that's interesting. Well, because you had tough time getting parking.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the state over the last decade has had declining high school graduates. And so you're saying, geez, there's a decline in high school graduates. Why is Rick having record freshman enrollments? What I think it is, I think more families and more students are realizing, wait a minute, there's some pretty good quality here.
Yeah.
And you mean I don't have to take out the kind of loans that my cousins or others have to do to get a college education.
Right.
I can have that quality and not have loans. I think more families are beginning to see Rhode Island College as a first choice institution. And we're seeing that in record enrollments now. The other thing we have to do is we have to shake things up a little bit. I think every graduate should have 21st century skills. So how do we do that? I look at you two guys, and if there was anything I would encourage students out there listening would be to do things like these two guys. You're getting practical experience.
Yeah.
This is essentially like an internship. It's a project-based activity where you're getting skills over and above your degree. They're going to help you be competitive in this real world. What I would like to do as president over the next several years is to have 100% of our students to have a practical-based experience like you're having, internship, undergraduate research, study abroad or study away, and invest in those experiences, because that's what's going to make for even a higher quality education. And at the prices we have, it's going to be a no-brainer for Rhode Islanders. We should be a first-choice institution.
Yeah, that is, I think, now, would you encourage a lot of kids to join, like you were saying, in their field of study, RAS, but would you encourage a lot of kids to kind of step out of their bounds? Because I've always found at RIC is a diverse school. Even though the numbers might not show extreme diversity, they do show diversity. And when you walk around this campus, you go, it's a diverse school. There's a lot of people with a lot of different worldviews, people coming from different backgrounds and cultures. Do you encourage people to kind of step out of their major or their field of study? And so maybe there's a business kid. Should he come join the radio station? Or maybe there's somebody who's in the health world. Should they join Learning for Life? Should they get involved in resources outside of their field?
Now, no question. What makes for a high-quality college degree today isn't the name in and of itself, isn't that it's an Ivy League or a research institution. It's the opportunities to get engaged and to get involved on campus. And at Rhode Island College, because of our size, there are opportunities where students can say they may be a math major or theater, art, or music, and they can join the radio station. They can be the president of a student recognized student club or organization or student government. They can audition for a theater program. Absolutely, that creates the rich kind of educational learning experience for our students. And we create those opportunities here at RIC. Because of the size that we are, there's a little bit more of an intimate, smaller experience where students can really step out of their comfort zones. And I'll say, in terms of diversity, there isn't a better place to get prepared for the 21st century workforce than in a diverse campus like at RIC. Diverse values, attitudes, race and ethnicity, different political opinions, maybe even religions, different abilities. Because I'll tell you, when you graduate, those students that can engage with diverse, whether you're a nurse, a teacher, a CEO, a manager, social worker, those students that have skills to engage with people that are different from themselves, they're gonna move up and they're gonna be the leaders of tomorrow. I want to encourage students to do that here at Rhode Island College. Here's a great place to kind of step out, and it's okay to make. We don't know everything. It's okay to step out of your comfort zone and make a mistake here and there. Here's the place to do it, but learn from it, grow from it, so that when you step out of here, you're in a better place and more competitive in the workforce.
Yeah. I've always thought of a place like RIC as a place where, well, even college in general. College is the place where you kind of learn life. It's not always just about the practical and the theoretical knowledge that you get in the classroom. It's about the things that you
experiences that you go through.
It's what you go through in the regular day life of college. College is your last step before, here's the real world. You get your real world ticket when you get that degree. Even if you're going to grad school, get your adult ticket finally.
Oh gosh, it's the adult ticket. I like that. I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and college had a profound impact on my understanding of the world. Yeah. Different people, different backgrounds. It exposed me to so many things that my parents didn't expose me to. Nothing against. I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. What do you expect?
Right.
And many of us grow up in communities that limit our worldview. College, I agree with you 100%. College is the place to then expose your the boundaries, your understanding of the world, and exponentially kind of blow that up. But you only can do that well by stepping out of your comfort zones.
Yeah.
And there's that's tough to do because it's tough to step out of what you're comfortable with.
Right.
I feel like RIC is definitely the place where students could try.
Yeah.
It definitely has that type of feel where it's like, hey, you can step out of your comfort zone. We kind of give them a place to do that.
No question. And I know tonight some of the students are going to watch the big debate is up tonight, right?
Yeah.
Here at Rhode Island College.
Dr. Endress is putting on that event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, this whole election season has brought up for a lot of communities this notion of difference. Certainly, we see it around race and ethnicity. We see it around politics. We see it around religion. And I'll tell you, if Rhode Island College students, if there's one thing you can walk away with from RIC, and I want to encourage you to get involved with, is to develop those moderation, mediation, facilitation skills to work with that are different from yourselves, instead of being a bystander.
Yeah.
I don't want RIC graduates to be bystanders in all of this, to kind of watch, well, geez, I wonder what's going to happen. We need folks, teachers, nurses, leaders, to begin to develop the skills in college, the training ground, so when they go out and they're leaders, they can actually bring people together. It's an art form. It's hard. There's some tough conversations out there in this nation. But you know what? Who's going to be leading the nation in the not too distant future? It's you guys.
Right.
Yeah, the people who aren't
You
afraid to
guys.
talk
And-
about it.
and look
Even
at
if
most
they
of
don't
the-
agree, they'll still open up the conversation to have.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's
look at most of the
exactly right.
people who run Rhode Island. There's legislators that come out of here
Yeah.
so often. I know Alan Fung, the mayor of Cranston, Jim Langevin, both RIC grads. A lot of people went to RIC that
Yep.
end up running the state of Rhode Island because it's a local-based
That's
college.
exactly
so
right.
you might not end up the president, but you might end up running your, voting for your
Yep.
community, being a senator or something like that.
Absolutely.
So-
When we, as administration, we got to create more opportunities for you to do that. Just this morning, we had the Prime Minister and Minister of Timor-Leste. They were one of the newestly formed countries in the world off of Portugal. After many, many years of being oppressed, they're now a new country. And to hear, I mean, this gentleman, the Minister of Timor-Leste, he's like the George Washington of America. He just helped create
yeah, a
a new
country.
But he talked about, it's interesting, he pressed upon the students this morning about having human values.
Yeah.
The idea that we can come together and resolve our differences. I mean, he was imprisoned for 7 years. And for him to come out and still say, without that animosity, without that hatred in his heart, to say, we need to promote human values to, reconnect and to address and to resolve issues we have amongst each other towards peace. And that's what we, that's
the
what we
kind
gotta
of
try to
love
do.
that can cure humanity. You know what I mean?
It's exactly right.
It's really deep there.
But it's hard. It's hard because we grow up in communities and families that don't always understand differences, right?
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
the other generation. And if we grew up with them, well, they can't be wrong. It's not about wrong and right.
Right.
It's about, what do I want to do going forward? Do I want to have division or do I want to have inclusion? Do I want separate communities or do I want a human community? And those are the tough conversations we get to have at RIC.
Yeah. That's it. And RIC's a perfect place to have it, honestly.
Yeah.
Places like RIC are. So changing gears a little bit. So when Nancy Carullo left, there was a lot of unrest and there was a lot of change that people felt needed to happen. Students and faculty both equally were upset, even though I never was close enough to any situations with her to have any personal experiences. What sort of administration change are you trying to bring to RIC that might rectify situations that people were unpleased with from the
Sure.
last administration?
Well, and I don't know, I can't speak to the past administration other than what I've heard since I've been here.
Yep.
There's a couple things we're doing. One of the ways I'm trying to get a better understanding of what's happening here is I'm doing a listening tour, and that's part of what this is. I gotta listen to our students, and our faculty, staff, and administrators to better understand the real strengths of RIC. I'm a big believer, if you don't know your past and you don't know where you're at now, you can't begin to think about your future. And we have a strategic plan to do for this institution. And so I'm setting up better access to the president by doing these listening tours. We're doing large forums. We're going to do smaller departmental forums. I'm even going to have a coffee hour.
Nice.
That's good.
6:45, if you're an early morning riser, 6:45, 7:45 every other week in Donovan Dining. If you're
Awesome.
you want to come talk to the president, I'm going to be sitting there
That's an opportunity
with my
right there.
coffee. And so communication comes back to communication and opening those doors. We're investing in a couple of things we've done along those lines. We had a college-wide, all faculty and staff barbecue right before school started to bring our entire community together. We also had the next day, I had a faculty staff convocation where I talked about some of my initial impressions and where I anticipate the next 12 months where we're going to go forward. I think opening those doors where there's transparency and kind of honest communication. I certainly, and I don't assume in any way I know exactly how the college needs to go forward, but collectively by coming together, faculty, staff, and students, and our alumni and external stakeholders, I'm convinced we can come together and put together a great plan going forward.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
communication's real high on my list.
Definitely. So you'll be doing coffee in Dining Center. One thing a lot of students that I know complain about is the dining services on campus. Is there any possible expansions to these services in your plans?
Well, this is part of having these conversations, you know. Students certainly have a say, have a voice, and they should voice themselves. I heard real recently there is a discussion, I don't know, a debate on whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, and who's, I think our student body government did a Twitter survey, and I think 53% it was Dunkin' Donuts at the time. But that's part of a larger conversation to say, is that something our students would want? And then if so, what's the financial feasibility of that? Let's just throw that out for a minute. Let's jump into this a little bit more. So let's just say students want to have Dunkin' Donuts. And if they're willing to invest in it, and if there's a price point, but they're willing to do that, I think it could be something we would consider, provided students understand what that meant.
That's a financial commitment.
It's a financial commitment. Doesn't mean we don't do it, but it might mean a little bit more tuition, might mean a little bit more student fees. But if that's what students want, I say students do a whole referendum or vote, and then hey, if it's thumbs up, then absolutely should be something we explore. I think whether it's housing or food services, or frankly just customer services, in our student service operate, whether it's financial aid or the bursar's office or the advising center, all these things I think should be looked at closely, and we should, hold ourselves accountable and get feedback, evidence of how we're doing well or not doing well, and then work towards addressing it.
Solid, man.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
I believe that leaving it up to the people, especially in a college position, when, like you said, customer service, to be honest with you, technically we are customers at the same time. We are paying for the education, paying for resources and things like that, and I think that's the right way to do it, to kind of leave it up to the people, leave it up to the masses to decide on what to have and what not, what they want to spend their money on.
Now the challenge, and I'm interested, and maybe we'll get some suggestions from student callers, is how do you do that with 8,500 students in a fair way where you allow all students to be aware of it and to engage in the conversation? I think you got to leverage technology somehow, social media. I think you leverage media in general. But we got to come up with a good strategy to engage students in these broad conversations, because we need feedback.
Yeah.
It's fine if we get feedback from 20 students. It's a whole lot better if you get it from 2,500 students.
Right.
And that's going to help us if we get more students involved in the conversation.
Definitely, you know where to go, what direction to take the university, and as a whole.
We're more informed.
That's right.
We're just administrators, and we're trying to administer the college. But if students are, if we don't really know what the students' needs are, issues are, it's hard to make real good decisions, right?
True.
Right, and that comes back to the transparency you were talking about earlier. To have students actually knowing directly what the administration is knowing, like you're saying about getting the communication right there, getting it back to the people, getting it right back to the people. That's the big part about this, because I feel like at RIC, because it has to be bounced around so much and so many people aren't on campus, the majority is commuters, so people aren't here more than their class that often. So the communication is broken. And I think the social media bridge right there, that is a great idea. That's the way to kind of bridge the gap that we have right now.
Definitely.
Well, and then let's take commuter students, for example. I walk around campus to and from meetings. I see a lot of commuter students sitting in their cars, having lunch.
Believe me, I notice it too.
And so I go, man, what are we not providing these students? What if? And there's a lot of schools all over the country that have commuter centers. Students can get plugged in. They can get information on jobs and other opportunities, but you can build a community where they don't have to sit in their car. They have a lounge to go to, vending machines, a place where they can get resources and information, so they can come in and be a part of this community. I think those are real conversations we can have going forward.
Yeah, and I notice that too. Being a commuter, I come to campus and I immediately get out of my car. I never wait, but I'll look around and I'll see 6 or 7 people at least. I might walk.
Just on their phone, sitting in their car, eating. It's like they just don't want to be on campus.
Right.
They don't want to interact with anybody.
Yeah.
And the community center would definitely be a step forward for that.
I wouldn't blame that, though, on a lack of space or a lack of resources.
That's that's like a mindset, a mentality, really.
I've found that the resources are here. The best kept secret to hang out and to study at on this campus is the rec center. All you do is swipe your ID, you go hang out in the lobby there. It's nice. You can watch TV and things like that. People just don't know about these certain things.
They don't know.
For some reason.
Well, we just opened up, for example, Sappensley Hall as a lounge. And I walked in there the other day. There were students all over standing. There's a couple couches, but it was packed in there. And we've got to clean it. We've got to, tighten up that space a little bit. But my feeling is there is also some need for space for students to go to. I know the library is used quite a bit by a lot of our commuter students. But I think in general, and this is true with a lot of colleges around the country, we got to create more opportunities for students to relax.
Something less formal.
A little less formal. No, exactly right. And so we're going to work on that. My hope in the next 24 to 36 months, we have a comprehensive plan, physical plant layout for this campus, so we know what we need to build, what we need to improve and enhance to help our students.
Well, speaking of that, what right now so far have you been pushing for or kind of exploring to put on the campus as far as buildings? I know Gage Hall is still under construction. What sort of change, and the new nursing building, what's the name of nursing? Is
Fogarty.
Fogarty,
Yeah.
Okay. So those buildings are coming in, those changes are being made. What's the other changes? Are there going to be changes to the housing, changes to the buildings on campus, anything like that?
So I have heard loud and clear from students and from external folks that our housing experience needs to be improved.
Yeah.
And so right now we have a proposal to our governing board to look at a brand new residence hall that would be built out, as well as making substantive investments in the existing halls. So, if you're living here, if you're living here 24/7, we can do a better job on that experience. As you said, some upgrades, substantive upgrades. One of the things we're finding, if your living quarters isn't what you wanted, you're not going to stay.
Right.
If it isn't what you had in mind,
those are the kids that don't return. Yeah, those are the kids.
You're not going to stay.
All right.
And so I've heard that, and I actually had the opportunity to work in housing. I ran a Department of Housing, University of Wyoming. I was an RA. I was a hall director. I know a little bit about housing, and we have to make that experience second to none in the state, and it starts with the facilities. And so we're looking at that. That's one thing top on our list. Of course, we have some major renovations happening now. Gage is going to look phenomenal at the end of this spring. Unfortunately, you guys are getting ready to graduate, so you won't get the full benefit. You got to come back, though.
Right.
And it's going to be an amazing brand new academic facility, and then you have Craig Lee then starting right up afterwards. So we're investing
wow. I didn't know about that.
millions of dollars in our physical plant infrastructure here, because when you have nice facilities, you attract and people like to be a part of
Yeah.
a growing, vibrant academic community, and that's what's starting to happen here at RIC. But housing's on the docket right now for some additional investments.
That's
Awesome.
good to hear. I know a lot of people are going to be excited about that. That's
Yeah.
definitely an issue here, and it's nice that you're on it and, you know, already making plans to resolve it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that'll be appreciated by a lot.
The other service area, if I could mention real quickly, some of the students, maybe there was someone in Professor Montvillow's class I attended, and I attended a chemistry class and an English class over the course of the summer. You know, I wasn't waiting for school to start. I started talking to students as soon as I got here.
Nice.
But academic advising came up.
Yeah. Which is something that people especially expressed to me when I told them I was doing this interview with me. They go, some kids, it's just hard to keep an
they'll meet
advisor, to find one.
and they'll leave. They
Yeah.
won't even let them know that they're leaving.
Yeah.
They won't tell them that they're missing classes to graduate. Like, it's pretty bad. Some of the experiences that I've been told about. Me personally, I have a great advisor, Professor Galvez.
I have Dr. Min, department chair. Awesome. So
But some of these other students feel as if, you know, their advisor isn't trying to get them out of here in 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the type of feeling that they get.
Well, and I'll tell you, out of all of our services, we have a lot of important services, but among the very most important is quality academic advising, because this establishes your academic momentum.
Yep.
If you can't get into the classes you need, or because scheduling's messed up, or you're misadvised, it's going to take you longer, it's going to be more expensive, and you run the risk of not getting your degree. And so we have to look at this very closely. And, you know, I'll tell you a couple things that are going to happen in short order here. Over the years at Rhode Island College, there was a schedule of classes that you had a lot of overlapping classes.
yes.
So you'd take this class, and it might finish at 10, but you had another class that started at 9:45,
Yep.
and so on. So you couldn't take the class you needed in a sequence that was timed in the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
The faculty got together, and I want to give kudos to our faculty, and particularly the committee that did this work. They got together, and they put together a proposal that extended the day, starts a little earlier, goes a little bit longer, but it breaks out of those overlap. So now you can do block scheduling,
Yeah.
one class right after the other. And I'll tell you, that was a huge lift by our faculty. And I signed off on it this summer. It's going to go into effect fall of 2017.
Well, that's awesome.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's going to play out in different ways, but that's going to be a big deal for our students. The other great work our faculty did is they put together a 25-page report looking at academic advising. And right now on the table, there's a proposal to professionalize the first 2 years of academic advising for all RIC students. So they get high quality advising regardless of major.
Yep.
They get great support. And then the second 2 years, at least this is what faculty proposed, the second 2 years would be major specific with your faculty member. But the first 2 years, professional advising, professional advisors, kind of a small army that would provide high quality advising. Advising shouldn't be episodic. It shouldn't be, you just happen to get a great professor and you just happen to get a great professor. Every student should have quality advising.
Yeah.
So we're going to work towards that. And I think the faculty support that, students support that. This past Friday, I communicated that to our governing board. Now they know that it's a high priority for us.
That's great.
Nice.
Yeah, because I just I spoke to a girl. Well, actually, my mom spoke to a girl. My mom told me the story about it, where the girl was in the education program, and the department. It wasn't the department chair, but it was somebody in the department higher up, and she had her take certain classes that were with her, and they ended up being classes she didn't need. So now she got put a year behind. So, in that way, I think what you're doing as far as the 2 years professional advising is perfect, because there has to be some sort of way to screen. Just because you're a professor or a doctor or even a department chair doesn't necessarily mean you'd be a good advisor. I think equaling that playing field and making a professional level advising is the way to go.
Yeah.
It is the way to make kids actually get out of here in a financially conducive and probably a 4-year time period.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, the advising requirements, prerequisites, new program. It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I think, out of fairness to students, they should have a professional advisor that knows that inside and out and backwards, so that they can give them the very best guidance and direction. And so we're looking at that, and we're going to work very closely with faculty leadership. But I'm excited because that could transform the RIC experience
Absolutely.
for a lot of our students, because every single student here is touched by advising in one way or another.
Yeah. It comes with that mentoring mentality.
Right.
You know, if you have that advisor that's good for 4 years, that watches over you and actually cares about you,
It can go a long way for your life.
it's like having a parent at school, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
So as we wind down here, do you have any last thoughts to share to the RIC students, the RIC
I actually have a
parents?
few questions
Do you?
to ask you
Okay.
before
Sure.
we wrap up.
All right.
You're not going to let me go just yet.
Nah,
No.
I'm really happy to have you here. I was doing a little reading, and it said that you were appointed to the New York State Board of Regents work group to improve outcomes for boys and young men of color.
Mm-hmm.
What type of projects did you do, or some examples of work you did with this board?
Sure. So that was in New York State while I was working at City University in New York. And we proposed legislation to invest in a Department of Community and Family Services for the state, like an umbrella agency that would help work with communities, work with community-based organizations, work with school districts that worked in diverse communities by providing better services, support, and guidance. And that's one thing we did. I also we had one of the nation's largest black male initiatives in New York City at the City University in New York. And we did a whole variety of initiatives and programs and services to improve retention rates, to improve access and recruitment for diverse black and Latino, all students, but in particular men. And a number of those have been recognized nationally for their outstanding work in building that pipeline into education, in particular for men of color. And so that's
Definitely a way to bridge the gap, in society, by making an effort to educate these young men.
Well, and I'll tell you, for Rhode Island State, that's the changing demographics of this state is becoming much, much more diverse. And if Rhode Island College wants to be viable and relevant for the future, for the 21st century ocean state, then we have to engage these changing demographics and these changing communities more effectively. And so one initiative we're going to have under my administration is this notion of inclusive excellence.
Yep.
We're going to bring our community together, and we were talking earlier about students with different values and attitudes, different experiences around race and ethnicity or religion or politics. And we want to encourage people to step out, as you were saying earlier, step out of your comfort zone and learn about those differences. Get exposure, because it's going to mean a better quality education for you at RIC.
Absolutely.
That's real.
And we're going to encourage our students to discern their values. It may affirm how they grew up, or it may, after discerning, you may realize you view the world a little differently now. We want you to make that decision, but we got to create those opportunities for RIC.
Exactly.
And that's the type of community learning experience we want to create here. I'd be curious, and I don't know if you have time for phone calls. Are we out of time?
No, we can stay as long as you.
Well, I was going
willing
to offer the first listener a $20 gift certificate at the bookstore if you can make a phone call and then tweet my handle at Frank D. Sánchez and just say you're listening, and then we'll get you a $20 gift certificate to the bookstore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there it is, guys.
Our two phone
$20.
numbers are 456-9946 and 456-8787. So if you want to take Dr. Sanchez up on that offer.
I'm going to hold my phone. I'll see if I'll name the first tweet that comes in, but I'm happy to take any questions. Let me just check my schedule here so I make sure and I'm not missing an important meetings. I do have I have about 8 minutes.
All right.
And then I'm the chair of a national board. Actually, we're having a task force meeting teleconference where we across the country we're looking at how you evaluate student services on college campuses. and I'm chairing this national task force that are putting together kind of consultative advisory set of services for colleges and universities all over the country. And so important conversation for RIC, but it's an important conversation for higher education.
Yeah.
We got to serve our students better, and we need to help more of our students get their college degree. And so whether it's here at RIC or it's around the country, we're dedicated to that mission.
Bringing those outside resources in is a great idea, because then you can expand the students to the outside resources afterwards. Yeah. It's nice having the on-campus resources and things like that, but getting kids off campus.
Once you graduate or you're not in college, those off-campus resources are useful.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think one thing I wanted to touch on earlier that I actually didn't get to touch on, how do we not only promote RIC being the affordable school that has a great education, but how do we promote people that have come out here? Because there's been a lot of successful people. I was mentioning politicians.
Yeah, you won't even know.
Right. There's been a lot of people in our field, in Rass and I's field, mass media. I mean, we've had Mike Montecalvo from Channel 12, who was a general manager here, Matt Allen and John DePietro from WPRO. We've had a lot of people. I've met a ton of people from NBC 10 and Channel 12 that went to school here. How do we let students know who's actually come out of here? Because I hear from students a lot of time that are in their senior year. They'll be taking their final graduation requirements, and they'll still be saying to other people, I just go to RIC. You know, I'm not really expecting to get that great a job, or, I'll just kind of have to slum it until I get lucky. How do you get rid of that? How do you let kids know?
Change that mentality.
Right. Look at the people who have come out of here.
Yeah. No, I've heard it. I've heard many times. Well, it's just RIC.
Yeah.
No, it's RIC. It's
It
Rhode
is
Island
RIC,
College,
right.
and there's a certain quality. There's a couple things we have to do. One, again, we got to tell our story. It's one thing. So we do an okay job marketing ourselves. We have to do a little bit better job telling the public who we are. But we also have to do PR, and what PR is what everyone else is saying about us. Yeah. And we gotta get language out there and hard data and evidence about the quality and about the affordability here. In terms of those opportunities or alumni, I was just talking to Alumni Foundation board, or the alumni board, and many of them want to get involved in opening doors for internships. Yep. Let's do it. And we have many of them that have been in companies here in Rhode Island, companies in the Northeast, that they say, and they're still working. They say, well, we just have never been given the opportunity to work with RIC students.
Right.
I'm saying, let's do it. Again, it reminds me of Tom Ionati. He Fortune 10 company, he also wants to open up doors for internships for students, because he knows how this college, the impact this college had on his life. So there are opportunities there. We have to open up these channels of communication for our students, make them aware, whether it's through social media, through the radio, through just general information on campus. But then we have to begin to build this network and these alumni and friends that want to open up these doors for RIC students. Yeah, it's going to happen. We just need a little bit more time. I've been here about 2.5 months.
Right. You can't change the world 2.5 months.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
But we're getting on it. One thing we want to do, I mentioned, we want to create 21st century skills, and the potential of creating kind of a requirement for students where they get these type of skills, whether it's internships or study abroad or whatnot. Some of the conversation we have, this would help all of our students, come in focused to say, man, in the next 4 years, I got to have a major experience. Instead of, again, episodic students who happen to take advantage, happen to get connected to an internship, happen to do a study abroad, I think every student should have that opportunity. So we want to create an infrastructure that makes that happen.
That's conducive to everybody doing it.
That's right.
I find that a lot of students seem to be intimidated or whatever it may be. They don't even want to send a resume to certain places to get an internship because they're intimidated by the fact, I just go to RIC. There'll be kids from other places, They're afraid. And that's great that we're going to at least try to remove that, because we do need to remove that. Because, like you said, it needs to be, this is RIC. It's not, it's just RIC. Yeah. Can't be that anymore.
Well, and it's so important for the future of this state. Folks, 80% of all RIC graduates stay in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
If you
It's
invest
a local school.
if you invest in Rhode Island College, you invest in a 21st century Rhode Island. And this is the message I'm telling legislators. This is the message I'm telling the governor, that we need to make more investments in the quality of education, which we have a high quality. We're doing a lot of things great. We need to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
And a 21st century skills is going to be critical for tomorrow's graduates. So we're going to start building the services, the experience for our RIC students. And I think they're going to begin to see, and we already know, the general public is beginning to see RIC as a first choice institution.
Absolutely.
Quality, the affordability, it is the best value in higher education, I would argue, in New England. And so we just got to get that story out.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Where do you see? Do you have any more questions, Ross?
No.
Okay.
In 5 years, where would
Yeah.
you see this college? Like a future outlook?
In 5 years?
In 5
yeah,
years.
in 5 years, where do you see RIC?
Well,
The campus, the student body, the administration. Where do you see it?
I guess I would want the public, radio, media, legislators, governor, to see us as a first choice institution.
Yep.
To say, wow, we didn't know the quality that was in our own backyard. In fact, one of my goals when I meet with CEOs and executives and legislators is I want them to say, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And when I start sharing some of the data with them,
You want them to be in pure shock, basically.
and I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I've had numbers say, I didn't know. I had no idea. And so over the course of the next 5 years, I want people to just connect quality, affordability, and innovation with Rhode Island College. That this is the best value of higher education in the region. If that message is out there, everything else is going to fall into
Definitely.
place.
Those are the three very, I would say, strengths of Rhode Island College. And if we can put those on the forefront, put those on the, right in front of everyone's faces, make them connect. Because it's here. Like, that's something that you just have to let people know
Well,
that you are.
There's hard evidence. I'll tell you one other data point. I just learned this 3 weeks ago. So the commissioner of post-secondary ed here in Rhode Island gave me 10 national peers. There's literally schools from the Cal State system,
Yep.
schools from all over the country. And he looked at all these variables. One variable really stood out, though, and it was the millions of dollars that our faculty and administrators bring into Rhode Island College compared to other institutions. The second best was a school actually in New York City, Lehman College. They brought in just under $4 million in grant research dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Rhode Island College, they were number 2.
Wow.
Rhode Island College, just under $14 million.
Wow.
3 times as much of our national
Yep.
peers, 3 times as much external dollars coming here. But what was more impressive was that the work that was being done with those dollars, it was undergraduate research projects, it was project-based activities, it was student faculty interaction, not some researcher going in a lab and doing research on their
Right.
own.
It was the quality for the students.
It was the quality for the students.
Yeah.
No one knows that.
Yeah.
And that's just another example. Compared to national peers, we're in another orbit when it comes to the quality of student interaction and opportunity.
Well, I think that's phenomenal because we need it. Having gone here now for almost 4 years, we need it to be all about the students, and that is what college is about. Students will come back if they love their college experience here, and I don't just mean come back for the sophomore and junior year. I mean they'll come back, they'll invest in the university, they'll care about the university's well-being and welfare after they leave, and I think that's what makes a great college environment.
Absolutely.
That's real.
And I love everything that you've
He's trying to create that
Right.
environment here at RIC, and I feel like you're making the right steps, you're in the right direction, you have the right plan to make these things happen.
absolutely.
Well, and that's where I need, and this is the last thing I say because I'm going to have to run here. This is where I need everyone's support. I've talked to our foundation, that they do fundraising. I've talked to our alumni. I talked to our faculty, staff, and students. We all need to go out there and talk the good word about RIC.
Yeah.
Not enough people. It's always, well, that's RIC. No, we're RIC. And there's quality, and there's affordability. And this is the best kept secret in the Northeast. We got to tell those stories time and time and time again. Learn about your school of the only publicly funded school of social work is at Rhode Island College. The only publicly funded in the state is at Rhode Island College. Our nursing program, off the charts. School of Management. And then I haven't even talked about all the liberal arts offerings.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, then you go into theater and music and dance, psychology. I mean, we got to get that word out.
Yeah.
And if you do it and you do it, and then your families do it and legislate.
It's not a one-man job.
It's not a one. I can't do it. I can do my part.
Right.
But everyone needs to. And in a very short time, we can have Rhode Islanders have a completely different view of this incredible institution. And so thank you for giving me a few minutes.
Well,
to
thank
spend
you
with
for being
anytime.
here. Thank you, Dr.
honestly.
Sanchez. That's Frank Sanchez, the 10th president of Rhode Island College. Thanks for joining us, President Sanchez, on Nick and Rass at noon. We'll be back after this commercial break.
WXIN.
WXIN.
Providence, Rhode Island, USA.
Broadcasting globally to over 100 countries on the largest internet radio network on the planet. This is your station, your music. 90.7 WXIN, Rhode Island College Radio.